Alrighty, well, let's do this, guys. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the intel of where we are right now. We didn't expect to be here tonight. I know you've heard me say that time and time again, but the reason I'm saying that is because I was getting the word that I was going to be getting this phone number overnight last night, and I think I would have, except that the automatic timer that we had been on was halted or interrupted at 6 o'clock in the evening Pacific time yesterday. So we were rolling right along, everything going on fine, expecting this to go, and we had an interruption. I'm not going to call it a delay, but obviously the net effect is a slight delay. So they had to get some things handled today that evidently are being handled still and have been handled for the most part. Let's go, though, right over to Iraq first and see what is happening over there. Let's talk about, there were 3 distinct meetings yesterday in this country, but in Iraq there was another meeting going on with the Iraqi parliament, and the IMF was in attendance, and ALAK, A-L-A-K. ALAK is, I believe, the new CBI director of the Central Bank of Iraq. So he was in the meeting as well. My understanding was it was good. They may have passed whatever legislatively the parliament needed to do. It met with some agreements that needed to be signed at the closest IMF office, which was in Jordan. So the IMF and I believe ALAK, and I'm not sure who else, came to Jordan to handle those documents, get those done. But my understanding was the net result of that meeting yesterday, those 2 meetings, the net result today is the IMF has approved Iraq's, we're going to call it reinstated rate for the dinar. Now, we know that the dinar was at $3.22 for quite a while as a lead up to the Gulf War. We know that the so-called reinstated rate that we've heard about was at $3.71. We know that Iraq has been operating in country on their key cards, those prepaid debit cards, at a rate that high or higher for quite a while now, many months. And so this rate, from my understanding, I think there'll be an additional amount for the CBI rate. I don't think it's going to stay at that rate. I think it'll be higher. I don't know when that rate's going to be known to us exactly. We don't know that, but I don't think it'll be very much longer before that will show. I'm not as concerned about that at a CBI rate as I am knowing what our rate for the dinar is here in this country, especially as a PNR, or a privately negotiable rate that would be seen at the redemption centers. Now, we've talked in the past about generalities about rates, because I try not to get too specific about rates because they do change. They do go up and they go down. In the case of the currencies that most of us hold, the dinar has continually gone up slightly, and now it's at a really, really strong rate. I'm not going to go into it, but it's way, way higher than we thought it would ever be. And certainly it's one that's available for us at the redemption centers whenever we get the 800 number to begin to set our appointments and go. Now, so from a perspective of Iraq, they have been approved by the IMF for this new rate. I did get that this afternoon, confirmation of that. I will say this. The other things that we've seen happen is we've had various stages of readiness at the redemption centers. These are 7,430 plus defined separate building office areas that are redemption centers throughout the United States and Canada. When it comes to those centers, they've had readiness that's gone from standby status to active status to red hot, ready to go status, pretty much. And I think we're now in we're in a standby status now at the redemption centers, but they can be mustered to get into proper position and have, and we believe everybody is in place, but they can be completely in place in 6 hours or less. Make the phone calls, send the texts, get everybody in right away. They were supposed to be on red hot alert, meaning ready to go, this morning at 10 o'clock. And they may have been. It doesn't really matter because we weren't ready to go at 10 a.m. this morning. But I know that they can go from standby to very active status in a short period of time. We know that there are call centers throughout the United States, some of which are what's called primary call centers. Some are secondary call centers. And there's an amount that's designated based on the demographics and the knowledge of ZIM holders and other currencies throughout the United States. They know basically how many are needed to handle the calls, the incoming calls that we will make. So the primary call centers will be getting the initial call when we get the toll-free number and you put it out. Those will get the initial call, and then from that point you would be, if you have mentioned that you have ZIM bonds to redeem, then you would be, and any other currencies as well, then you would be transferred from that initial call that you make to a secondary call center. And that secondary call center will be the one to give you the details about your exchange location, about your appointment time, and so on. Okay, so it's a two-step process. Primary call center, secondary call center. Now, don't confuse call centers with redemption centers. Two separate things. Two separate forms of notification. I got word a little while ago that the primary call centers were just notified to be on, I'm going to call it ready status at a specific time. I don't know what the time is, but they were just notified. I would believe that very shortly, because they have time to respond back, the secondary call centers will be notified as well. And they will respond back within an hour. So it's all a process that's getting ready for us. My understanding is, more than likely, the redemption centers will be notified in a similar way, and they will be available at approximately the same timing as the call centers would be, to be available to handle our exchanges. Because obviously when I get the toll-free number, whenever that is, the call centers have to be in place for me to call and for you to call when you get the number. And then, of course, once we call, very shortly thereafter, if not at the same time, the redemption centers have to be available for the appointments to start. So there is a process to it, and I think I've outlined it accurately. So they may be exactly at the same time reporting into work, or the call centers may precede them slightly, but not by a whole lot. Half hour, hour probably max, before the redemption centers need to be fully staffed. let's see what else we can talk about. The there was, like I mentioned, there were major meetings going on yesterday. Bankers had a meeting up in New York. There was a meeting down in Dallas about gold and the value of gold and the price of gold and how it will be utilized to be one of the assets to back these currencies around the world. My understanding was there was a call yesterday that went to about 9:30, 9:45 p.m. last night that included possibly 9 different gold markets or 9 countries that were discussing the pricing and the value of gold and how it would be utilized to back these currencies in more detail. At that time, the meeting discussed the possibility of tonight, the central banks around the world. Now, figure we got 209 countries. Each one pretty much has its own central bank. Doesn't mean there are 209 central banks, but there might be a central bank that would handle more than one country in some cases. But the central banks are supposed to start aligning themselves tonight at midnight Eastern Time and complete by noon tomorrow. In this 12-hour period, that whole process of the gold as an asset to back these currencies around the world, that's when that is supposed to occur. We can call it alignment, we can call it pinging, we can call it just being able to agree with and be ready for that information is over a 12-hour period starting tonight at midnight. Okay? Now, if you put that all in perspective, it would appear that we are getting close to the reveal of this and the release of the toll-free number. As I mentioned, it was mentioned that I was to receive this last night. Didn't get it overnight. Maybe tonight will be different. Maybe tomorrow will be different. I think that with what has happened in Iraq yesterday and today, I think it portends well for us moving forward. I believe we still need certain parties that have been told time and time and time again that they are to be paid, like core groups, like fines and penalties going out, like farm claims. Some of the groups, they've been told many times to expect to be paid at night or at a particular time or by this time or that time. And I think that may still need to happen, at least as far as core groups, and maybe the SKRs need to be handled slightly before the notification for us, the Internet group, in Tier 4 goes out. I've always thought that most of those people would be paid either at the same time we're notified or slightly before we are notified. I still hold that belief. And the fact that none of them have been paid yet, really, even in simple ledger-to-ledger transfers, which is what we're talking about, that tells me that they just can't go forward until we're in process with our Tier 4. Has to go back to the concept of nobody getting an unfair advantage in starting, and the Chinese elders, I believe, wanted this to happen in a shotgun start manner so that all of us would be starting at approximately the same time. What else can we talk about? Let's talk about the timing. Today is what? The 10th. Tomorrow's the 11th. And I understand we're supposed to have 10 or 11 days of exchanging at the redemption centers at these privately negotiable rates. take that and go out with it, that takes us to the 21st, 22nd, in that time frame, which would be a Saturday, Sunday. Okay, I can see that being the end of our redemption time frame at the redemption centers, I believe. And then could the John Q. Public start maybe right around that time? I'm going to say the 23rd, quite possibly, which would be Monday. And they would use the regular banks that do currency exchanges. So that's sort of the process as I believe it'll unfold, provided we get started here pretty soon. Because every time we get pushed out, that pushes the John Q. Public out as well, especially if we're going to have 10 or 11 days to exchange, which is what I'm understanding at privately negotiable rates. Okay. So that's really what we're looking at right now. I also believe we're going to hear quite possibly some additional news in that time frame of the 21st, 22nd, in that time frame. Could include the introduction of Nasara Jasara, which would mean discussion about the TDAs, those TDA accounts. Could include discussion about debt forgiveness. Could include a lot of things. It's something I think that we're going to look forward to. I think I mentioned to you, gosh, did I mention to you this on Thursday? I believe I did, that the new $100 bill was out for a day or so. Well, even at my own bank today, I saw the new $100 bill, talked with the tellers about it, talked with them about the new indications or icons that are on the bill, like the gold inkwell. That's new. The inkwell is gold. The quilled pen above it is gold. And there's a hologram in the inkwell that is that of the Liberty Bell inside the inkwell. That's kind of cool. That's another security feature. They also, on the other side of the bill, in each corner on the 100 is in black ink, except in the lower right-hand corner. The lower right-hand corner of the bill has the 100 in gold. Of course, the big 100 on the other side of the bill is still in gold, and it still bears the signature of Timothy Geithner, our former Secretary of the Treasury. Our current Secretary of the Treasury, Stephen Mnuchin, his signature plates were done a long time ago, but my understanding is those bills will probably come out sometime in November, possibly early November, with his signature on it. And my understanding is that may be the only real change to the bill that is fairly new, that is out now. Now, the bill that's out now does not say U.S. Treasury. It's U.S. Treasury note. It says Federal Reserve note still. So let's just take that and understand that this is a transition. This is happening fairly slowly. Most people would never notice the changes that we talked about tonight, about the new 100. I believe the other bills will come out in like fashion and be introduced. The 50 will come out, then the 20, then the 10 and the 5 and the 1 will all come out new, but probably over a little period of time. So we may have some disclosure, if you will, about our new currency, and we may not have it until the 21st, 22nd. We may not have it because it's going to be subtle. It's fairly subtle. Do we need an announcement from Treasury, from Stephen Mnuchin, about our new asset-backed currency? Well, you would think so, but who knows when it's going to need to be made. The new 100 is out, and it's widespread. Believe me, if I've got it at my bank, it's at all banks now. Okay? So that's a very positive thing for us, you guys, because it does indicate that we are basically going back to and are really on the gold standard again. and that we're at least on an asset-backed standard, partially at least, I think in the 42% range, backed by gold, somewhere in that range. And all the currencies around the world are going to be backed with assets. And that's what's going to give some of the currencies like Vietnam and like Iraq and Iran and Indonesia and many others that we're not even talking about. They will give them the value, like Zimbabwe. Oh, don't let me forget Zimbabwe. That will give them an incredible value, even compared to the U.S. dollar. Now, will those rates that we see on the back screens now, will they stay or will they change? My thinking is after we're done with our redemptions at the redemption centers, those rates will normalize and come back down for John Q. Public. Okay? And that's my opinion on it, based on everything that I've heard. So, in terms of where we are, we're almost there. I don't know. I can't call it, guys, and it's not right for me to call it any more than it's right for me to give rates, because rates change. And you know the timing of this, as much as I'd love to have told you guys, hey, it's today, it's yesterday, it was last night, it changed. It changed on me. It didn't come through like it was supposed to. Well, so we're not going to call it, but we're going to be ready. We're going to be vigilant. We're going to be ready for this to come through so that when we do